All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Now we start the conversation on the stalemate in the counties. The members of county assemblies are threatening to stall activities there because of a pay dispute with the SRC. Let's see, first of all, what you're saying online, if we can get those feedback, and then get into that conversation shortly. At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Daybreak. I asked you earlier, do MCAs deserve a pay rise? We'll talk about that shortly, but first, let's talk about the issue we were talking about earlier on, which was the finance bill. Honorable Lilian Sioy says collections from the contentious housing levy will be ring-fenced to ensure the affordable housing agenda succeeds. Okay. Engineer Lazaro says his is a case of misplaced priorities. Employers are being pushed to reduce staff to manageable numbers, or simply put, staff on contract basis to avoid punitive taxes. Okay. Charlo Woodrose, he says the Finance Bill 2023-2024 is not a joke. Kenyans will suffer. It is now when most Kenyans are understanding what it entails. Even members of parliament who voted for it will soon regret. Only God will deliver Kenyans from hard times ahead. Okay? Babu Michael says it's sad that at a time the Kenya Kwanza government is raising taxes and assuring that public funds will be safeguarded, is when scandals in billions are emerging involving their members of different sectors. When will they tire of stealing from us? Okay? Bob Otieno says President William Ruto has no option but to assent Finance Bill 2023 in order to execute mandate given to him by Kenyans and to fulfill his promises according to his manifesto during campaigning period. Okay. So let's get into that conversation on the county stalemate. First of all, I'll start with you, Honorable Shege, because you're the Secretary General, County Assemblies Forum. What is the state of the counties right now as we speak? Are they on strike? Are they operational? What's going on?
Thanks, Trevor. I think it's good to lay some foundation. Number one is that county assemblies are the oversight functions at the county level. That's one. Number two is that for us to be able to effectively check the executive, you need a very strong legislature, because it's so easy to be duped, to be pocketed, if you are not strong enough. And that's what happened in the National Assembly, or then Parliament, when they were able to remove themselves from the executive and strengthen themselves to the point of now even the budget-making process that we are talking about. The center stage is usually Parliament, not executive than it was. So once you have a very strong legislature, then you are able to effectively oversight. And remember, even the progress we've done, even with regards to the housing tax that we are talking about, moved from the kelele of the opposition. And the executive had to listen, and it went down. And maybe it didn't go down to zero, but it is not the 3% that was being asked, and comparatively another one from the employer. So it's very important to have a whole, and remember, I also saw the finance committee chair, getting some give and takes and be able to bring it down based on what Mwananchi and the other lobby groups were talking about. Now, coming to the assemblies, the SRC are on their fourth cycle, review cycle. What the Article 230 gives the mandate to set and review regularly the remuneration and the benefits for all state officers. Now, the only state officer who is not a member of the SRC are the MCAs. The Parliamentary Service Commission is represented, Judicial Service Commission is represented, TSC, police oversight. I mean, all manner of organizations that represent all these bodies are represented at SRC. County assemblies are not. So you will never hear Parliament complaining because they are part of SRC. So there is an inherent systemic inbuilt situation of making this thing not to work to the assemblies. When assemblies got their first cycle, that is around 2014, there was some adjustment. In 2017, on the second one, there was a reduction. So MCAs at the time, which I was part of, went to court and we returned back to what we had in 2014. In 2022, again around July, and I remember you asking me, but we knew, the cycle was done a month or a couple of days to the general elections. So maybe some of us who are there, we would say, no, I don't think Bahati would have known. So it's also unfair to say in the middle of the campaigns you should have seen and made a decision a couple of days to the election. But having said that, is that even on the third cycle, we were returned. What I was getting in 2013, 2014, my basic was 123, moving to 165 on the 5th year. Now her basic is 86. What math is that? So that's what I'm saying. It's an inherently inbuilt way it's not supposed to work. So that has been the clamor. So when we came in as Secretary General and the team, we said, let's not rush to court. Let's be formal. We have had, I think, a couple of meetings, maybe about 5 and 6. But after, we asked the SRC, so what's the issue? Is it a job description? Go to Article 90, what is it, the 98, that gives the qualifications and the of Senate and National Assembly. You go to the one for members of county assemblies, which is 193. It's the same. You know, education, the same. It's the same thing. So what job description did you get to members of parliament this kind of pay? And by the way, there's a relationship between the salaries of the members of parliament with regards to the president. It's about 49 or 50% of the president's salary. If you come to the counties, her salary is 16% of the governors. So what's the relationship? You go to Article 2 of the Constitution that says sovereign power shall be given and shall be done in this accordance to this way. Number one, parliaments at the national parliament and the legislatures at the county level. And then number two, national level, and then the judiciary. There was a reason why they said parliament and national. And then they said you're going to divide between the level of national and the county. That's Article 4 of the Constitution. So, which means there should be some relationship. So if you look at salary structures in the national level, there's some relationship. If you look at the counties, there is no relationship. Okay. So we're asking, what was the job description? If it's the issue job description, we did a proper one. Okay. And we gave them. So once we are now in the discussion, and by the way, the cycle is not just about MCAs, they are doing a cycle for all public officers and also state officers. Yeah. So we are rightfully in the process of asking. So at this time round, we want to know what criteria. If you are going to add, what will be the criteria? If you're going to drop, what will be the criteria? Finally, if you look at even sitting allowances, initially, we used to have plenary sittings and committee sittings. Mm-hmm. Plenary sittings were scrapped, even in the National Assembly and Senate. We said, fair enough. But you see, the committee sittings are capped. So you can only go for the ones that are paid up to a certain level. Now, the plenary sittings are getting a hit because there is no allowance. So members, it is a huge problem for the whips to get quorum for the assemblies. Yeah. If you look at the National Assembly and Senate, the committee sittings are not capped. So you get the mismatch and the discrepancy. Finally, SRC article, I think, 235, says you look at the productivity and you look at how you can attract and retain quality. So you want quality in the counties so that Bahati goes and campaigns in Macha, and you also want more of her, so that we get quality, but you also do not want to find a way of attracting and retaining. And number two, transparency and fairness, all in a basket of fiscal responsibility for the whole. So what is the state right now, Shege? How many counties are operational? How many are... So the clamor it was an uprising. Yeah. Members started feeling this, they're not doing enough, they're not pushing enough, we're not talking to Trevor enough. And we said, we're doing the back talk. We're doing the backlog, the discussions here and there. But people are feeling, no. I think it should be a national discussion, and the discourse needs to be elevated. So people say, if we are talking, if it's unfair, let everyone be able to judge. So it's not a matter of this guy is new or they are greedy, no. And that's why I'm able to give you the figures as they are. So if, and of course, we did have a meeting as County Assemblies Forum and ratified that assemblies should actually move into that direction. So, of course, counties are at different levels. The ones that were able to move it faster, but we gave ourselves, I think, 14 days. Nairobi, I think, because of budget-making process, the things a bit slow on that direction. So, but there is the general directions that we need to stall to have a discussion that we should make a national discussion in this direction. Okay. Yeah. But why do you think you deserve a pay rise?
Trevor, I know when it comes to matters of salary and politicians, it's a very sensitive situation with the public eye. And one of the things, as Mheshimiwa mentioned, once we were elected and went into, once we got our payslip, that's when we realized there have been a constant cut down. Which even in our constitutional right, it's not admissible. And what, as an MCAs, what we are asking for, can we just be given a proper guideline of what should be equally right for us to be paid? And as the MCAs and the forum that we came together and created, and we talked and deliberated, we were like, let's follow up the due process. Just let's sit down with the SRC. Let's come in together, because once we compare with our parliament and just how the operations they do work with, even with other officials of the state, we saw there was unfairness when it came to the MCAs. And MCAs are a very crucial part, an integral part when it comes to county governance, because one of our ways is to oversight, legislate, and represent. And it becomes really harder to oversight our leaders who are actually carrying the budget at the end of the whole day. And you find it becomes even more harder for you to even to question someone of, why did you allocate this much here? Why did you think this would have been more appropriate for yourself rather than the people that we represent? So as MCAs, what we are asking is not even a pay raise. We are asking of what was the initial restatement of what was even before.
Yeah.
It was the 2013, actually. Yeah, that's what we're asking. We're asking for a reinstatement, not a pay rise.
Yeah, but someone like you wasn't there at that time.
I wasn't there.
When you're coming in, did you know what you're getting into?
No, I wasn't. But then once you get there, you're like, this then must have been so unfair, because actually it was so unfair for the MCAs in 2013. Like, I don't know how because actually the MCAs in 2013, their basic pay was 73?
79.
79, yeah, that was how bad it was, because even they had to fight. I remember that's why even most of the time, I think 2013 we saw so much drama in the county assemblies. Come 2017, it was still the same thing, and that's the same thing they did come 2022. So there is a pattern that you can see when it comes to MCAs, and that's why you'll never hear such dramas when it comes to their parliamentary. Yeah, we'll never hear it. But now to the MCAs, it's kind of there is inconsistent to it. So we are not asking for a pay rise. Yeah, we are asking for a reinstatement. Okay. And
a direct question? Did you know how much you'd be paid when you're running for office?
No. As a leader, we never sit down and think, oh, okay, I'm going to be paid this much. Because when it comes to leadership, it's about passion. It's about the zeal. You just want to lead the people. You want to make a difference in your community. And I've been able to interact with so many politicians. To be honest, their business and all that, they earn way more than even what the state pays us, So it's never about the salary. It's about making a difference and that a passion just to lead your people. Okay. Yeah.
Honorable Nyotu, do they have a justification? Do the members of county assemblies have a justification for the clamor?
Thank you, Trevor. Yes, they do. Because if you are telling somebody to take a pay cut, and in any case, the inflation that we are currently living with, this is not the time to tell somebody to take a pay cut. The least you can do is retain them at their level of pay. And so I think MCAs are justified in asking for a reinstatement of what used to be paid to them. Number two, forgetting about inflation, number two, the MCAs are the people that our people in the wards call at the slightest, any problem that they get, be it a sick person at night, be it a family that went without a meal last evening or the last few days, the first person Wanjiko will think about calling is an MCA. And it is only fair to be realistic. Nobody, no citizen of Kenya will go and knock at the chief's door to tell them that they had no meal last night. Nobody in Kenya will go and knock at the door of a chief executive committee member to tell them about the problems. Actually, nobody can even call or knock at the door of a CEO of the biggest company that you can think about. It will be the MCA first. And then other elected leaders, the member of parliament, or member of National Assembly, the senator, you know? And so I think MCAs, and I think all of us in the Senate are agreed that even without giving them a pay rise, at least it's important to reinstate their pay where it was. So they're justified. But I think I want to, I think I hold a different view from Honorable Chege. Because I heard him say that Parliament does not complain about SRC. There's a link he was able to make there, a funny one. Yes, Parliament is represented, but I can tell Honorable Chege that Parliament has never been very comfortable with some of the things that SRC does. It's only because of what Honorable Bahati has said. Mm-hmm. Members of Parliament do not want to talk about their pay because it has a lot of negative repercussions. And again, like Bahati has said, when you get into leadership, you're not going there simply because of the amount of money that you expect to be paid. It's a passion, it's a calling. And so members of Parliament do not want to discuss about their pay when they are comfortable, whether they are comfortable or not. And so I think I want to differ with him on that. Yeah. The other thing I also want to differ with MCAs on is this threat of closing the assemblies. They just cannot do that because this is a job that they were given by the electorate. Yeah. So what they should do, in my view, is they should continue pushing for reinstatement of their pay or even a rise in their pay as they continue serving. Yeah. Because they cannot boycott on Wanjiku. I mean, you cannot tell us that you will close the assemblies because then you will be, boycotting against Wanjiku, in my view. Yeah. So I strongly feel that they should continue their clamor, and we support them as the Senate. Okay. But they cannot. Okay. In my view, close.
I'll come to you in just a bit. Let's hear what Kevin Osida has to say. He's also the Executive Director, County Governors Watch, deals with you a lot, MCAs. Osida, what are your views on this? Are the MCAs justified for this clamor that they're asking for more pay rise? They say they're asking for a status quo to be maintained, not a pay rise.
Tremor, that call is, in my view, misplaced. And it is misplaced because of the members. The members of county assemblies, in my view, are largely more or less watermelonic. They exist in this context based on what is happening. So BBI presents a process. Of course, BBI is a forgotten case, and they are told, oh, 2 million car grant, they buy into it. And they, in my view, Trevor, there are a number of examples that we can share which are opportunities that members of county assemblies, particularly through County Assemblies Forum, should have used to deal with the long-term issues and consequences of this clamor. So I know that they are doing it now because of the budget process, which is also another issue. And I agree with the senator, they don't have to close down operations of the assemblies, because looking at the constitution, they have a mandate to represent the people. So when they close the assemblies, who is going to represent the people? Who is going to oversight, as Chege Mwaura is saying, who is going to oversight over the executive when they close the assembly at a point in time when budgets are being made? So what if the executive decides to be very, quote unquote, rogue on the budget process? Who will oversight over it? Who is going to make laws at this point in time, particularly when issues around taxation, and we've seen the long haul conversations on the budget process, which is also a legal framework. And the same process at the national level is also happening at the county assemblies. Who is going to pass the finance bills of the assemblies if they close So MCAs, particularly the leadership of CAF, need to identify opportunities that present themselves for them to be able to have conversations on long-term issues. For example, I know that they don't have a seat at IBEC, the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council that is chaired by the Deputy President. But I am of the opinion that based on partnerships and collaborative efforts, CAF can have an engagement with IBEC, and even including the summit that is chaired by the president. Of course, it is for governors, but as Mheshimiwa Chege Mwaura says, MCAs actually oversight over the governors. So there has to be an engagement framework within which we see County Assemblies Forum, the leadership of the MCAs, taking advantage of existing opportunities. And as the Senator says, then Senate, therefore, by Constitution, is supposed to protect devolution. And devolution cannot be there without the MCAs. So senators, therefore, need to also have a conversation with MCAs through CAF and look at the long-term concerns that border on MCAs, particularly threats around the budget-making process. Because, Trevor, this is not new. And Mheshimiwa Chege Mwaura knows that we see this happening year in, year out. So we need to find a mechanism of a long-term process to address these issues. Number two, MCAs, and that's why Mheshimiwa Bahati says, is that the clamor for increment of salaries or whatever is a political process. Most members of most citizens are uncomfortable with the call by MCAs because they don't see value for their money. And from County Governance Watch and other partners that engage on devolution, we have been asking, can MCAs show us value for money and value for processes? For example, if you are to audit performance of a county assembly, how many laws have you been able to pass? The committees that are supposed to support various service delivery aspects of county governments, health, education, infrastructure, whatever it is, how have you been able to perform so that even as external players in the process, we can actually come, and thanks to Royal Media Service and Citizen, we come to these very important platforms and support members of county assemblies to ask for more money. But if we retract and go back to look at what you have done, we can't touch it. Some of these MCAs, and I normally tell my friend Mr. Honorable Chege Mwaura, it's really difficult. You have members who cannot even present a bill to the floor of the House. They can't express themselves. Of course, there are induction processes. There are mechanisms that have been put in place to build their capacity, but you don't see traction. There is no effort that a single member is actually putting in place to show that, yes, I am asking you for more money, but this is the value that I am giving you for my money. Number three, Trevor, so that we move on with the conversation, MCAs and county assemblies must support county governments to be able to generate revenue. So on-source revenue, which is one of the worst performing aspects of most of our county governments, because analysis and research has been done on on-source revenue, and Kenyan county governments have a capacity of more than 210 billion shillings of on-source revenue. But we haven't even reached today in 2023 an eighth of that particular expectation or estimate.
Okay.
Why? Some county governments have failed to pass laws that support streams of on-source revenue.
Yeah.
You can't tax people without a law or a policy. So we want to see the county assemblies working in tandem with other engagement platforms, particularly the executive, to be able to support on-source revenue. So that through that, we sit asking for not for ward fund or ward development fund, but affirmative action, because the Constitution might not allow for an enactment of a law on ward development fund. Why? Because MCAs are at the apex of the budget making process. So I think there are a number of things which the MCAs, even as they make the clamor and have this clamor over increased salaries and reinstatement of their per diems or allowances or whatever kind of expectations they have, we need to also look at the long-term aspects and not be very gullible based on the context that presents itself.
Okay. Shege, there's a lot coming your way as the Secretary General.
First of all, I think Kevin has said a lot with regards to how county management and the processes of supporting government. I think that should be a discussion you bring us next week, and we now go deeper into it, because in terms of own source revenue, what are we supposed to do other than pass the laws to enable the executive to develop and get their own source revenue?
But are those laws that you're passing,
we've passed these laws.
Are they clear enough?
Very clear.
Increase
very
revenue,
clear.
own
But
source revenue collection?
If the government or the county government is sleazy or is not as capacitated to be able to achieve the targets? Now, again,
which is also your role again to oversight the county,
we oversight,
to ensure they implement those laws as is.
And I can bring evidence to that effect.
Okay.
So that is a discussion I want us to pack, and you call us here again to talk about it. Again, in terms of the issues like election processes, I do know there are people who, the constitution is very clear on the qualifications. So maybe Achege Maura here can be talking nice English. There's a guy who people like him, he was the best guy they thought. Whether he didn't, he can't talk, that's the people, that's what people wanted, and that's a person they feel can represent their issues to the best of their ability. So that again we can have a discussion until evening about. But two things again for the good Senator. Number one, Article 96 is very clear that the primary role of the Senate is to protect counties and their governments. And I had to tell him that we're also part of government. So even before we clamor, I thought that Parliament should have, actually Senate, should have grabbed it and asked us, what is it? What are the issues? What do we need to do to move forward? I have said, maybe Parliament does not speak, because 2 seats, Trevor, Article 230, look, the first seat, other than the chair, is the Parliamentary Service Commission, right? And then there's also another seat that is of Senate to represent county governments. So there are 2 important seats that are in SRC that are supposed to be talking about issues of these state officers. So in as much as maybe it's not a very, even for me, it's not a very palatable discussion. But then they have avenues. They have opportunities to be able to interact and ask. So that I told you, and I gave you the discrepancies. Kevin also added the one of car reimbursements. It's a benefit, yes. For us, it's not. It's a reimbursement. Go by, bring the receipts, you refunded the money. Them, they get, is it 7 million? No tax.
He doesn't want to confirm what it is.
But so if you want us to go into details, the good Mheshimiwa here gets hers at 2 and is taxed 30%. So where is the fairness? Where is the comparability? Where is the transparency? Those are the issues we're talking about. Even in terms of mileage allowance for the guys who are over, far-flung areas. The reimbursement of car mileage allowances. Us guys of short distances in Nairobi, we never claim it, we never get it. But the guys who, of those distances, and by the way, if you are from somewhere in Mandera and you have to hit to the county assembly, which is in the town, wherever it is, it's very different from a member of parliament. But again, even the rates are discrepant. There's a discrepancy. So we have issues. But then again, that's not what brought us here. I'm told we are not supposed even to close. Trevor, I lead 2,248 members. These members sit and make a resolution. I might not agree with it as Chege Maura, but it's a resolution passed by members. When CDF was declared unconstitutional, what did members of parliament do in their retreat in Mombasa? Said they are passing this thing. President, cabinet minister, deputy president rushed there. Was CDF restarted? Yes. So it's not a matter. People sit down,
saying that the
make
threats of shutting down the counties is essentially absconding the duties given to you by your electors. They elected you to represent them in the county assemblies, not to go and clamor for money and shut down the process of budget making.
And that's what we need to disabuse. That there is, these are, I see when people sit and say haki yao and whatever it is. It's maybe a tool that they use so that they are able to be brought to the table so that they're able to discuss the issues. I said we're also having committee sittings. These committee sittings, people sit, continue sitting, continue. And by the way, if you look at even the finance bill, the action was at the committee level. So the proper actions for members, Mwananchi, are usually within the committee area.
Yeah.
But then finally, your strongest supporter for devolution, your strongest watchman for county funds is the county assembly and its members. Why? I give you a good example of Nairobi. We do a 39 billion budget. The development budget for Nairobi should be around 30%, which is about 12 billion. The total budget for MCAs, recurrent, our staff and all those things, is about 1.3 in Nairobi, which is about 10% of that development. No county, and that's why I'm saying we need to have a discussion about OSR and other things that should be happening in the county. No county, Nairobi included, are able to absorb 50% of the development budgets. And that's what Mwananchi should be caring about, because 50% of development budget in Nairobi is about 6 billion. So if 6 billion was to be disbursed in Nairobi in terms of development, you would see a lot of change. You would see a lot of change. But if you look at recurrent, they hit over 90%. So who is supposed to be able to ask, no, hey, Skuma, this development and all that kind of thing? Is this assembly? And what is the total budget? Is, meager. Look at the National Assembly, or Parliament. Parliament got 40 billion out of this budget so that they're able to oversight. Look at the whole total money that is going to the county is about 385. How much is 40 billion of that amount? Just going to, you guys have 416 members and their staff to be able to oversight government. So that comparability is what we are talking about.
Yeah.
And by the way, if we look, and we did do a proper job descriptions and pushed it to SRC.
Yeah.
If they looked at it and they feel these guys even need to be brought back to 5K, it's fine. But we need a process that makes sense, so that even you, Trevor, you look at it and you say, wow, and yeah, these things are. And that's what you're saying.
SRC suggested a 10,000 increment and you rejected it. Why?
We didn't. The question was, what was the criteria?
Yeah.
Okay.
How did you arrive at this and why did you not arrive at this? Simple. And when you become tongue-tied, now what do you do?
Okay.
You get? So I feel Mwananchi, I feel the economy, and by the way, I've been here. I know Olivia and guys asking me, even you are complaining. You see, I get those kinds of hits. But the truth of the matter is, we're not doing this. I mean, I've been here for the longest. We're not doing this because it's about the salaries. It's about posterity. And for me, as somebody who also wants to do other things, how do we attract? How do we retain quality? How do we bring people who can be able to take government on?
Okay.
So that people don't feel that at the counties it's just monkey business.
Okay.
At the national level is when things are happening. And by the way, a lot of these guys are moving from here. It becomes like a training ground. Maybe the next time she'll be a women rep like that. Like that. So you build her capacity so that she's able to push for the people of her county. So that they also see value. So by the time she's doing her next level of appointment, the bread and butter issues are gone.
Okay.
She can be able to push.
Can focus. Yeah, but there's an interesting conversation that Osido brought up, value for money. The people don't see the value for money from the MCAs. Because if there was there, then the people would say, these are the people who defend us. These are the people who are doing the right thing for us. But how do you address that issue of value for money from the members of county assembly?
Actually, I find that very disrespectful, not just to the elected member, but the people who elected that member. I mean, when you go to the ground to seek for these votes, our electorate can tell you can speak English, or you can speak Swahili, or you can speak your mother tongue. So it's about who they feel they can connect and who can represent them well. So it's not a matter of how many degrees you have. Personally, I had people who had more money, had degrees and masters and all that, and they happened to elect me. So it's never about the value for money of the person, because like you're looking for the individual. Do you look like you deserve this? It's never about that. It's about the welfare of the member so that they can be able to represent their people in their full capacity. And our electorates need to understand, for devolution to be very well realized on the ground, the MCA must be very empowered. And it's actually sad that the whole situation has been led to a salary increment, but yet in our package of discussion, we had a ward fund. We actually were, as MCAs, we're actually pushing for that. Because as you can see, devolution has never been realized with our normal Mwende and Wanjiko on the ground. So these are the things that as MCAs, we're actually finding very unfair, because it has been all clubbed in one thing, it's a salary pay rise, and that's it. And it becomes really hard, and that's why you find even the rate of MCAs being re-elected the second time, it's quite difficult in many counties. Reason why our electorates, they understand from the president, those 6 ballots, every elected member must show the works they've done in the community. Then how do I, because the reality of an elected member, how do you go tell people I did pass this law? How did it affect them? Yeah. It's very hard. It's not tangible. Yeah, it's not tangible. Yeah. So these are some of the things we are asking as MCAs, because as we are saying, people, our nation needs to understand it's not about us, because I don't know whether 2027 I'll be re-elected or not. We are asking for better of our nation. How can we represent our people? How can an MCA be empowered and push the agendas of their people? And can we have a tangible projects that can be actually be seen? This is actually an MCA who did, and not just the governor. Yeah. You know, because once you go to the ground, you can see what the member of parliament did. You can see what the governor did, but what can you show for an MCA? It becomes really hard, and that's what we are asking. It's not just about the salary reinstatement, but also the whole office of an MCA. How can they be empowered and make sure that our people are well represented?
Yeah. Honorable Newton, are we missing the point here when we try to bring up the issues of salary increment and not so much empowering the member of the county assemblies, because they are the ones who are actually dealing with the people firsthand? So something like the Ward Development Fund, isn't that something that will go a long way? Because they know literally what's biting, where the shoe pinches.
Thank you, Trevor. As I sit here, I'm a strong supporter of our Ward Development Fund. And for the reason that if we want our members of the county assemblies to oversight county governments, because the primary responsibility of oversighting the operations of the county governments lies with MCAs, we must empower them. How do we empower them? Exactly what you have talked about, Ward Development Fund. I mean, there is that amount of money set aside for development at the county level. It would only be fair for these funds to be decentralized, because it's only the MCA, especially in the rural areas, who will know that a particular bridge somewhere is not working. The governor may not know. It's only the MCA that can hold, in quotes, public participation every day. They collect the views and problems of wananchi on a daily basis. And so, Ward Development Fund, if we can be able to legislate on it, and which we are trying to do as Senate, it would help in empowering the MCAs. But then in empowering them, we also need to see to it that they live in dignity. I mean, they lead dignified lives, and that's why reinstatement of their salary is something that we are supporting as Senate. Because even when they get this Ward Development Fund, it will not be available for them maybe to assist that person who calls on them in the morning, because of course it will have, there will be a structure, of course. And it is not about, you know, some individuals. They will be projects. So we need to also empower them. But if you allow me, also, you know, when you look at what county executive committee members, for example, or the CEOs, I mean, those people employed by the executive, the much that they are paid compared to what MCs are paid, I think there is a problem. In fact, I think I would want to tell Honorable Chege, in his comparative analysis, and I think he has done a very good one, I think he should not, in my view, be relying so much on, you know, comparing what MCAs are paid with members of parliament, but with people who are actually not elected, but who are being paid a lot of money, you know, like those in the executive, like I've said. So we start thinking of what does an MCA do apart from assembly work? And that is why I, again, differ with my friend Osido, County Governance Watch.
Yeah.
Because you cannot assess the performance of a legislator, be they, whether they are MCAs, members of parliament, senators, and that kind of thing, by just what they do at the assembly. There is a lot that they do outside the assembly. We also have committee work. I know they have committees just like we have in the Senate. And there's a lot of committee work that legislators do outside the assembly. So that not every legislator can, sponsor a bill or bring a bill to the House. In any case, the time available, plenary time, is limited. You are to do a bill per member. In fact, I don't know how many will be done in a term. But then every legislator contributes a lot in whatever comes to the House through the committees. And so you cannot assess a leader and say they have not sponsored a bill, so there is no value for money. There is a lot that happens behind the scenes. And I think the other thing that I want to tell some of the people like Osido, and they have a right to their opinion, but I think they should not look at leadership from an academic angle.
Yeah.
It's not an academic exercise. You cannot talk about how many papers somebody has written. The leaders are not trying to be professors. It's not about publications. It's not about the bills. It's about so many things that you cannot even quantify.
Yeah.
And sorry if this is not very kind, but, if somebody thinks that being elected, even as MCA, is easy, so that you can go there and prove that you have value for money, just give it a go. Okay. And see how difficult it is. There are so many.
But he agrees.
Yes, there are so many issues. There are so many. It's not just a matter of sitting in the assembly.
Yeah.
But I want to correct Chege again when he says that, because I insist even now that they cannot close the assemblies. When he says that the members of the National Assembly were somehow protested while in Mombasa and the CDF came back, yes, it is true. But they protested in Mombasa. They never threatened to close the National Assembly.
They threatened.
So just a minute.
The budget.
That is that is the position. Okay. So you cannot, Honorable Chege, you cannot close the assemblies. But we support you, and you know that. And there are so many avenues of you, carrying on this clamor. Okay. But with assemblies, I still insist.
Yeah.
You cannot do that, because like Trevor has said, you'll be absconding. I mean, that one is out. Okay. But we support you in everything else that you do. But just allow me, Trevor, very quickly to talk about development, because I think Bahati has talked about it. Our people need to know that you don't only assess the success of a leader just by development. And our people also need to know the people whom the Constitution gives funds. Okay. I mean, I think I want to speak for MCAs and senators. MCAs do not have a development kitty, same as senators. Yeah. So if you want to assess the senator of Murang'a Joe Nyoto by the number of roads that he has put up, the number of hospitals he has put up, the police stations he has put up, then you are going to say that the senator is a failure, because the senator has not been allocated, does not have any fund. The senator's role is simply oversight, representation, and legislation. Yeah. And so our people also need to maybe also, know who is supposed to do what. Okay. The governor has a development fund. Yeah. The member of National Assembly, whom they call MPs, has what we call CDF. Yeah. And of course, Kera roads are also under them. And so our people need to know that the success of a leader is not just supposed to be about development, especially if their offices have not been allocated any funding or any kitty by the law.
All right, Shege, I'll give you a right of response, but we're running out of time.
Thank you. And I must appreciate you for bringing the senator, because now it's a balanced debate, because their work is to protect counties. Two things I want to just give clarity. Number one is that when even the president, and he's my president, wrote to the two speakers of parliament seeking some adjustment in the constitution, he asked for the CDF to be put in the constitution, he asked for national government affirmative action, which is women reps in the constitution, he asked for empowerment funds like Hustler Fund, and he also asked for Senate Oversight Fund. So how come the most devolved of the funds, the World Development Fund, was not captured in that letter? So those are the issues we were saying. It's systemic. Number two, in terms of comparability, the reason I am coming from Article 3 of the Constitution on the sovereignty. We're given the same powers with the national, with Parliament, only that our level is at the counties, theirs is at the national. And if I was to compare further with the CECs, which are the ministers at the counties, when we started by then in 2013, our salaries were the same. Today, it is doubled.
Theirs is doubled?
Yes. In fact, if you look at what it is now, it's tripled.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but you're expecting a lot of oversight from people who you, first of all, vetted for jobs, and you're able now to supposed to look at them and say, no. And these are people who can even give you, money to go and take to your county, people like that. So those are the issues in terms of comparability. If we went even to the counties, it's even much unfairer. Yeah. So what we are saying, and that's why I don't want this discussion to be lost in terms of money or in terms of, this guy's new or the economy. Let's look at it in terms of the fairness and how we want to grow devolution in terms of moving forward. Finally, is that we need as a country to look at what do you want. Yeah, if you are going to get Trevor to do the best job for Citizen TV, then you need to pay so that you get quality. The same way, you want quality at the county level, you want to get people who are articulate, who are able to push their agendas in areas like Machakos and far-flung areas, look for quality and retain it, then you must be able to do the adjustments that we're talking about. Are they fairer? Are they able to retain that kind of quality? If we get that, if quality is 5 shillings, well and good. Whatever that figure is well and good. But it made to make sense to somebody who is not. But all in all, I think this is a good discussion, which we need to be able to talk. So members understand, our people at the counties don't just think these are just guys who are fighting for whatever. Yeah. But it needs to be a discussion so that they internalize and also be able to appreciate what the clamor is for, and again, is for posterity.
Are you getting, what kind of reception are you getting when you discuss these issues with SRC? Are they listening to you? What kind of reception are you receiving?
They are very well listening. They are accommodative when it comes to the proposal they're giving. It's just that it looks mismatched. And the biggest problem, again, you are always told, oh, you're too many.
No money.
You're just too many. Because whatever amount you're going to give, we do times 2,000, it comes into billions. We didn't want to be many. It's the constitution that put us at 1450 wards in the country, and they said if you're not going to hit the gender threshold, then you have to top up so that you're able to. So we become 2,000 plus. 1450 wards in the country, which was scientifically arrived at when the constitution was being made. At the National Assembly, there's a reason why they are 290 and the senators are 67. Right? Or whatever. They add up to above 416. So whatever it is that they're able to do and they push, they're not so many. When it comes to these guys, they're just too many.
But a senior official said that the government simply doesn't have money. We are broke at this particular point. We can't afford it. Simply can't afford it.
That's the first thing, so that you dismissed, we don't have money, look at the economy. But when they're also doing those, the other things that you want to help devolution, you want people to be able to stop the pilferage of funds, empower your watchman. Right? Don't add to the watchman. By the way, any county governor who is able, they have a minimum of 7 CCs to a maximum of 10. Any county, and it was supposed to be the bigger ones like Nairobi gets to 10, the smaller ones get to 7. All county governors have put 10. They've gone for the maximum. There is no cutoff for chief officers. That is like the equivalent of PSs. All of them have hit almost 20. When they are being employed, we are never told money. But when you come to the people who's your people's watchman, no, the economy and all that. So that's the problem now we have, and the pressure we get for the people we represent.
But what do you say to this call by Mheshimiwa Nyutu that you shouldn't shut down or even threaten shutting down county assemblies? Find other ways of having this conversation.
Sometimes, once you've made a sit down and you can actually see there is no possibility of your cries being heard, it's that point where MCAs feel like this is quite unfair, because we are not just pushing for ourselves, also pushing for the people who have elected us. And like I said, it's not just about us who are currently elected. We are fighting for the devolution. That's what we are asking for. And like Mheshimiwa said, it's quite unfair when the watchman who's actually guarding gold and whatever in one room, and there are thugs who are coming, actually you can't even do anything. What you do, just give in and work with whatever they are working with and help them steal the, I'm not saying that's what the members do, but it puts them in a very awkward situation to do the oversight. So for us, what we are pushing for, as much as the counties are shutting down, and it's just we want our cries to be heard. We want what our members of our county actually are pushing for. Even the people who elected us, they're actually in support of the Ward Development Fund. They're like, yeah, this is actually good. We want to have this devolution being realized at the ground level. And not just to say that it's quite unfair when, as MCAs actually are shutting down, it becomes a problem when actually the Council of COGs, they actually threatened to shut down the counties if the money was not yeah, the demands were hard. So it's very unfair. It's okay if the governors do it. It's okay our senators if they do it. It's okay if our MPs do it. But it's very wrong, extremely wrong, if an MCA, they're actually pushing for their agenda to be heard. So that's what we are saying. There's a mismatch. And that's what even some words like what Mr. Osido said, you can actually, sorry to say this, there's some madharau when it comes to MCAs, and I can say it's very sad. I've interacted with so many MCAs. They are very eloquent. They can, there are people who resigned from the well-paying job to come and serve the people. So we need to understand that the MCA is equally elected as the president.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Osido, let me bring you back on this because now you're the one on fire because of the statements you made. You can now clarify this. And when you listen to the MCAs, do you see a justification? Because they're saying the issue here is not so much asking for a pay rise, it's just asking for a status quo and empowering them so that they oversight the county funds and the legislative agendas of the counties as they were elected by the people.
And Trevor, that's purely what it is. In fact, the members on set and my colleagues on the panel might think that I am really hard on them. But believe you me, the same tone that I am using is the same tone that the president is using. And that's why Mheshimiwa Chege is saying, how come when they are doing letters for MCAs, for senators and for women reps and others, they leave the MCAs out? Value for money. MCAs, will have to work hard to be able to excite this aspect. And value for money, I'm sorry, Mahati, that I sounded disrespectful. It's not just about papers. Two words that have been mentioned very many times in this conversation is oversight and empowering members. What is oversight? And Trevor, I think we probably might need to break down this conversation or that terminology so that we understand that why would a member of county assembly need money to exercise oversight? For example, the senator mentioned committees. Will members be able to use the money to make visits as a committee to a health facility that is not working for the people? If that happens and they go back to the assembly and raise questions and actually put to task the chief officer health and the county executive member concerned about health and whatever sector it is, that is value for money. It's just about paperwork. Because I agree with you that there are some members who might not speak very well in English and Swahili, but they can actually communicate and mobilize effectively for good work to be done. And we see them every day across all the counties. So value for money is not just about the papers. It's about your role given to you by Constitution. What do you do with representation? There's so many petitions that citizens write, questions and letters that are received by the clerk and by the office of the speaker. How many members do we see arising to the floor of the House and actually putting to task the various duty bearers on questions that are being asked by members of the public? That is value for money. So that we ask issues around oversight. We break down that oversight to border on the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Planning. If money has been put for a road, for example, and the citizens are saying, we were called for a public participation meeting, we put money to the road, it is 7 years down the line, there is no road. 7 years, it means another MCA or the same MCA has been elected or re-elected. Ask the question, what happened to the money we put on accountability? My people who voted for me have not seen the road. We are not talking about papers there. It's about services, because citizens are unable to reach to the market, to provide, to sell their goods, to harvest from their farms, and so many things. So oversight, Mheshimiwa Bahati and the Senator and Mheshimiwa Cheke Mora, is not just about papers. It is about communicating to the citizens, which brings in the aspect of empowering. And I know that MCAs have ward offices. What do you do with those offices? Because we have actually trained some of the staff of the MCAs ward offices. How do we make it easy for the offices to show the work that is being done by MCAs, so that we say, if you give us money for rent as members of county assembly, that the feasibility of that office being there is so that citizens are able to engage with us. The youth who are looking for places to have their meetings can come and sit there without having to book for halls or pay booking monies for other places or hotels. Is value for money for the people. No. So we empower the individual who is the MCA, but the services are actually being felt by the wider majority of the citizens.
Okay.
Trevor, on the Ward Development Fund,
yeah.
Again, I'm not fighting the MCAs. They have to show value for money. Break down the process.
Come on.
Okay. There's a lot of protest in studio, but yes.
Just a minute, Mheshimiwa. Break down how you want to deal with the conflict of interest issue on public participation process on the budget making, which is actually led by the members of the county assemblies, against appropriations and executive implementation role that is being done by the executive. So that if you are given money for healthcare, for example, or say you want development fund to deal with health, what happens to the money that is given to the Department of Health? Which is partly why CDF, for example, only does 3 things: bursaries, security, and education. And that is infrastructure, building walls for police stations, for putting roads that are leading to schools,
really?
Or, police stations. If you can ask for affirmative action, because the senator said that MCAs, they receive phone calls, they attend weddings, they go to funerals. That is money which, if you asked us to join you in fighting for as an affirmative action fund, we would be happy to. But if you tell us to join you on what development fund, there's a conflict of interest issue, which I think the members of county assembly through CAF will have to help us understand. Why do you need to give money to sector groups or rather sectors through the budget to the executive, and also retain money called ward development? But I agree, Trevor, as Cheke Maura proposed, invite us back, then we have a much more detailed conversation around this concern.
Shege, Shege, your right of response now.
And first of all, if you are going to invite us, don't give him the benefit of hiding in Nyeri. Bring him here so that we can square it out very clearly. Because I think we need to capacity build, Kevin Osido, on the issue of WDF. Because WDF is very different from the CDF. CDF, the patron is the MP. With WDF, we want it to be ran by the executive. Wholly. All we want is to be able to go to the citizens together and agree on the projects that are going to be prioritized. I give you Nairobi, for example. Nairobi, with 85 wards, it's very possible to have a governor who was elected on one half and then didn't get votes on the other half. So if you get a rogue guy who decides to list or blindside one area, then what happens to the areas of those people regardless of how they voted? And that's why we are saying there must be a certain percentage. In fact, what we are asking Senate to do for us is to find a way of capturing it in the allocation, division of revenue, and it be ring-fenced. From the 15% that is going to the counties, let it be ring-fenced that this amount is supposed to go directly to the county, to the wards. So that whether I like it or not, I know Ngara is going to get, she knows whatever it is. How are we going to identify those projects? Let's go together. Who's going to do the functioning, the managing? Everything, it can be done by executive. All we are asking for is that can we get a sizable chunk that goes directly to the ward level. And secondly, and more importantly, can it also be captured under development, so that we've been here telling you that development budgets are never exhausted. Let that a certain percentage be captured so that it is exhausted. I mean, if you look at what CDF does, doing police stations, and whatever walls, is that what people really want? Look at what, I give you tons of examples. Small bridges that cross here and there, changing of infrastructure in terms of Schedule 4. And by the way, it's very clear. Schedule 4 says what is national, what is county. We don't want to do what is national. Let's do what is county. Okay. So those are the issues that we need to disable. Two things again. Again, we are going to have a discussion on CIDPs and ADPs, including, I yesterday tabled 4 PAC reports, public accounts reports, and we've recommended guys to go to EACC. So we want to, if it's oversight, Kevin Osido wants, let's bring it here. Okay. We have that. And then finally, on the issue of communicating to the citizens, you need to look at, and it's open, look at how much money members of parliament are given to run the offices and the amount that is given to the county assemblies. For me, I had Ali talking about Kileleshwa. The same amount that you're giving Kileleshwa is the same amount you'll give to Macha and to Rukana. Same amount. I mean, where is it? It's about 58,000 to run, to employ 3 people. MPs have a serious budget to be able to run those offices, which is captured around CDF. So these are the issues that we are saying. It does not make sense. Even if you wanted to bring those graduates in your offices, they'll be there just looking for internet to look for better jobs. So those are the issues and the discrepancies that executive watch should be looking at. Okay. And then finally, issues of communication. We want to be able to have these kinds of discussions so people understand what's happening in the counties. And I really want to thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, Bahati.
Yes, yes. One of the things I'm getting from Mr. Osido, it's the members of county assembly, they are not people who can be given funds and manage it, which is actually very unfair. Like I said, it's very unfair. It's unfair to our devolution, because you're saying our system, it does not support the MCAs, which we are all in this. We are all in it together. And that's what, as Mheshimiwa said, when we are fighting for the Ward Development Fund, we are saying this. In cases where, God forbid, if my ward, let's say in Cheleni, didn't vote for the current sitting governor, if she happens to be someone who's not kind enough, who will be like, yeah, that area, I'm not going to develop it. So in 5 years, our people remain with no development. So that's what we are asking for. We just need the equalization. Even some we are calling equalization of funds, where we know every ward is allocated this amount of money, and of course, depending on the areas, areas of the county. Of course, we have the ones, they are very well, very diverse. The others are very much needed compared to others. So those are some of the things that we are asking. Let's make sure our people, actually what the MCAs we are doing, we're actually representing our people. Even right now we are sitting here, we are representing our people because we know their needs. I know where my bridge that needs to be constructed. I know where I need a borehole to be constructed. I know all those needs because that's my home. That's where I live. That's where I've been born.
But do you get Kevin Osido's argument that even currently there's the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Plan. What are the MCAs doing to ensure that what was agreed by the people is actually implemented? For example, just in your ward, if there's something that was supposed to be there, like a health facility, what are you doing to ensure that health facility is actually there and it is functioning? Yeah,
and actually that's now what we are fighting for. Because sometimes it might be, yes, we need we need a health facility, we need this water tank, we need all this. But by the end of the day, the executive might have the privilege of moving those funds and allocate them to another area, which is very common in all counties. Extremely common, and every MCA can attest to that. There was a funds allocated for this, but all of a sudden they were moved to another most needy or emergency, or depending on the population of that area. And then your people are left, are wondering what happened to our project, and that's what we are pushing for. We must have that. By the end of the day, the people of Cheleni, if we have been allocated 15% of the budget, I know this money belongs to the people of Cheleni.
And it can't be moved.
And it cannot be moved no matter what. That's what as MCAs we are fighting for.
Fair point. All right, let's bring up some feedback then on Mheshimiwa Nyutu. I'll give you the final word on this as we close because we've run out of time. Let's bring up the feedback and go through them real quick. At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya using the hashtag Daybreak. Let's see what you're all saying. Godi Baraza says, since I would want to agree with the MCAs on their pay rise, it's so apparent that times and circumstances don't allow the exchequer to shoulder even an ounce more of a burden. This is not the time to haggle over salary increments. They've mentioned that it's not a salary increment. They just want their money reinstated where it was. Bobo Tieno Wino says MCA's mandate is to represent voters at the lowest level, and at this time, we are experiencing economic hardships. It's unfair for them to demand for pay rise instead of working on measures to improve our economy to ease their lives, okay? Bran Chemoa says MCAs do not deserve an increase in salary. How selfish can they be? We need to stop corruption at counties through adoption of open government practices by making information accessible to the public, publishing budgets, expenditure details, and contracts. Ndauo says we await Azimio to send letters to the MCAs who are calling for a pay rise. Okay. Peter Gesura says closing down county assembly business is to deny Kenyan services. Let the MCAs go back as the negotiations about their salary increment with the SRC continues. I'll give you all as a chance for closing remarks, starting with you, Honorable Newton.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you for having me. We have had a very good discussion. But I would like to tell Osido that what development fund, how it would contribute to oversight by MCAs, which maybe I think I did not put very clearly, is that, you know, in some counties, governors will threaten MCAs. Yeah. If you do not dance to my tune, then I'm not going to take development to your ward. And they actually do that. Yeah. So then how now that ties with the oversight is if an MCA is entitled, his or her ward is entitled to a particular amount of money every year, regardless of whether they support the governor or not, they will be able to be more objective in oversighting now the governor and the executive. Right. Otherwise, when we are still in that situation where the governor decides is the one that decides, the governor is executive is the one who decides what development is going to go where, then we will still have a problem with MCAs oversighting the county. And that is why I just wanted to make that one clear to Osido. Okay. So finally, I think, Ken, I think I'm late. I would like to tell our people of Murang'a that today, because of the job that they gave me of oversighting the county at the level of the Senate, as MCAs oversight at their level, today I'm going to accompany the committee on standing committee on health in the Senate to Murang'a County. In fact, we were supposed to have left earlier than this. I wish you could even allow me to leave earlier. Because we want to go and visit some 3 hospitals where there has been a lot of cry in Murang'a. That is Maragua Health Center, Moriranjas Hospital, and Murang'a Level 4 Hospital. And so allow me to tell our people of Murang'a that Joe Nyoto is oversighting and seeing to it that services are delivered by the county government the way they are supposed to be delivered. And that's why we are coming to those hospitals to see what has been happening. Thank you very much.
Osido, 1 minute, closing remarks.
Oversight is actually part of what the Senate has talked about. MCAs will have to show, again, value for money on how many visits that they make to areas that are not working for the citizens. Number 2 is we continuously appeal to National Treasury to clear all the disbursements to county governments on pending resources so that services can continue at the county levels. When you invite us next time, Trevor, we will need to break down whether it's equalization fund that we are asking for as MCAs, as Bahati says, or it is affirmative action fund, or it is ward development fund. Lastly, of course, I said we are in Nyeri and we are expecting the Speaker of the Senate for the closing session today. And thank you. We look forward to more engagements.
All right. Honorable Bahati, closing remarks.
Thank you, Trevor. One of the things I'd really request for our national government is to actually empower us as MCAs, to the president, to our deputy president, help us actualize devolution at the grassroots level. That's why we're able to propel as a nation. Another thing, just to say thank you to the people of Machakos County and the people of Cheleni Ward for giving me an opportunity to represent you, and I look forward to continue serving this great nation of ours. And all the people of Matungulu constituency, I love you all.
All right. Mwaura, Shege, final remark as the SG.
Number 1 is that from the remarks that from your, Twitter handle, is that we've heard what the public is saying, but then also let them also understand that SRC is actually reviewing in the process of reviewing all these salaries and benefits for state officers and especially the public guys in government. So it's also, let also get them cuts as some slack to be able to present what we feel should be fair. Number two, I thank you for giving us this opportunity, and let's keep this conversation going, because when you get some time like wide as we got today, then people understand it's just not about money, and we just don't reduce it to simplistic, simple arguments. Finally, I wanted just for the Senate to be able to pick up and start running and be proactive. Senate just shows up sana when it comes to division of revenue, and they are complaining about here. Let also look at counties, and I want to tell the senator, as you go to Muranga, also go to the County Assembly of Muranga, hear their views, so that as you're pushing for government, county governments, you're also pushing for issues of the legislators or that we represent. Right. Thank you, and thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for making time, Honorable John Nyotu, Senator Muranga, Honorable Shege Mwaura, MCA Ngara, and also Secretary General, County Assembly Forum, Honorable Grace Bahati, she calls herself Zora, MCA, Cheleni Ward, Machakos County, and Kevin Osida, Executive Director, County Governance Watch. Or is Zora your official name?
No, Zora actually, it was a nickname given by the people from the famous program of Citizen.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for that.
All right, that's where we leave it for now. And DJ Joe Mfalme is on the decks, His Royal Majesty, with Willis Bazura Buru. Yes, I can see him jumping up and down by the side, but he's there. See you in a bit.